All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Employability Skills Series, where we explore the top skills employers are looking for in candidates. Each week, we will cover a different topic with thoughts and insights from professionals in a variety of industries. I am your host, Megan Morrow, Senior Associate Director of Experiential Learning and Employer Relations, and today I have Deborah Russell, Talent Acquisition Supervisor for Lutheran Services of Florida, as my guest, and we will be discussing the importance of entrepreneurship and ownership of your role in the workplace. Deborah Russell is the Talent Acquisition Supervisor for Lutheran Services Florida. In this role, she has three talent acquisition specialists who report to her directly. In her role, Deborah assists Lutheran Services Florida hiring managers in finding talent throughout the entire state of Florida. Lutheran Services of Florida is a nonprofit faith-based organization with over 65 programs that serve one in every 50 Floridians. Deborah's educational background is Tallahassee Community College with an Associate of Arts concentration in retail, and Florida State University for a Bachelor of Science in Textile Sciences and Merchandising concentration in Business Administration, and St. Leo University for a Master of Business Administration with a concentration in Human Resources. Mrs. Russell has coined herself a lifetime student and said, "You can learn anything from anyone if you just listen." So good morning, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today?
Excellent. Like you said, a little cold, but it
Unfortunately, the cold is here. So we'll
is.
just jump right in.
Let's do
Thank
it.
you. All
You're
right. So
welcome.
did they send you any questions ahead of time?
No, we don't have
Okay.
any questions to start with. I want to make sure. Can you see my screen though that says the Employability Skill Series?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So let's just jump in. So entrepreneurship, ownership of your role. What exactly does that mean?
Entrepreneurship, ownership of your role means self-accountability. Whether you are the CEO of the company or if you're the person that everyone reports to in a leadership role, it's all about your accountability, ethics, and integrity. If those three things are not the foundation, then you're going to be wonky, wobbly, and probably headed for a train wreck.
I like that wonky, wobbly, and headed for a train wreck.
Mhm.
Okay, so why is that though?
So if they can't believe what you're saying, then they won't follow you. And so that's why the ethics and integrity has to be at the nucleus of everything you do. If they feel like you say one thing and then it turns out to be something else, they're always going to question where the vision is, where you're going. So if they're questioning what you're doing, they're really not going to be putting forth effort to move in that direction. They're kind of going to be like half hearted or one foot in, one foot out, which is going to slow down productivity. It's going to be demotivating to them, and it's probably going to spread like wildfire in the work environment because instead of them saying how good they feel or doing what they need to do, they're going to be more concerned with, well, did you hear anything today? Did you see anything different
Mm.
today? What's going on? And they're going to be more focused on trying to keep their ear to the ground than actually feeling comfortable in their role and performing. Um, and that's probably the biggest hurdle a lot of leaders face because things do change. You know, when there's a new rule, a new law, a new legislation, a new focus, things change. But if you've built your company to be ethical, full of integrity, people don't lead at it. They don't feel the mistrust. So they're saying, okay, we were doing this. Now we have a new direction, and that's what we're doing. So you keep their buy in versus they becoming skeptical of you.
Wow. Okay. I like. I've never heard it quite explained that way. I've heard of like followership, having to earn followership, and that's kind of what it sounds like. The same thing here, being a trusted leader, where you got the integrity, where the people have the trust in you, and then you have developed that followership from your people.
Mhm.
Never quite heard it worded the way you said. I thought it was really eloquent.
Thank you.
So, have you seen this in your role where people have not been able to uphold this kind of standard that you're talking about?
So in my current position, no, because they are really transparent. I would probably tell you this is the most transparent I've ever seen a leadership team be. When we needed to because I work for a nonprofit and we deal in refugee services. And so when the Trump administration first took over, they had a town hall. Hey, something's coming down the pipeline. We're not sure, but we're going to pivot as much as we can to make sure we don't have to do a mass layoff. And that's exactly what they did. Every time a new legislation came and something changed, they had another meeting. And so we probably had like four meetings and and I'm just like, wow, how much information are they going to keep pumping into us? And as the layoffs did happen eventually, there was no gray area. People knew they were getting laid off like 90 days before they did, versus most layoffs, they're like, hey, you're done at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And then they also try to repurpose positions. So, okay, we can't do this anymore. Can we do that? And if so, let's move these employees into that. And so they were so concerned with their human capital, which are their employees. I would say, no, it definitely is not toxic here. Now, in a previous role, everything was, if you didn't hear it through the grapevine or at the water fountain, you didn't know until it was in your face. So in that role, there was a lot of distrust. The turnover, I would feel comfortable saying, was at least 40%. Because
Wow.
once people feel they can't trust you, they're not staying because they don't know what you're going to do next.
I've actually been in that same situation as well, where we would see, I was working at a prison and you could, the way that the layout was, like you could see the people from like the warden's office, like coming down, like almost like this little windy path to get to where the inmates and I, like where our classes and our offices were. And you
Mhm.
would see the person coming down and it was just sheer panic. You're like, okay, who's getting fired? What's going on? I mean, like,
Yeah.
because there was no communication, there was no progressive discipline. I mean, there were times where I'd roll into work and somebody was coming in right behind me, and they would have their office in a box, going, "Here you go, get off the property," with no explanation. And of course, I'm sure that there were things behind the scenes that I didn't know about, but
Mhm.
it would that set that precedent. So like every time we saw anybody coming down that path from the warden's office, everybody was just like, I mean, it was just anxiety.
PTSD.
Oh, it was terrible. You're just like, you never knew who was going to get fired, who was going to get, or if the inmates, say with the inmates, they would just come and take them back to like another prison camp or something. So yeah, that's a very uncomfortable way to work.
Definitely. It that kind of fear, and it shows up on your Indeed or your LinkedIn or your Google reviews. People will leave those things on Glassdoor saying you never know what's going to happen. So when you're out here trying to get top, candidates, they check Glassdoor. I've had
Yeah.
in my previous role, I had several people remove themselves from consideration because of our reviews. They were like, no, no, thank you. Um, we almost lost a top exec because of what they saw online, and they were like, I don't know if I want to be in this kind of culture. And I'm like, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I actually left that same situation. I was pregnant with my first son, and I'm like, I can't have this kind of anxiety
Mhm.
all the time. I'm like, this can't be good for the baby. It's not good for my health. And what if I get fired, you know, a month before I have the baby and I lose my health insurance?
Yeah.
Like it was that kind of thing all the time. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so unstable.
Hmm.
It's not just a job, it's not just a paycheck, it was my livelihood, and it was my health. So yeah, that's a horrible way to live. And I remember the last time that we talked, Deborah, you were telling me about the layoffs at the job that you have now and how they handled that so eloquently, and they were like out there with the people while they were, like the last day and stuff like that. So a
Yeah.
complete opposite, it sounds like, from your toxic environment
Yeah.
to what you're dealing with now.
Yeah, we just did another round of layoffs in November, and um, those applicants were strongly encouraged. Hey, January comes, it's a new budget. Let's see where we can plug you in at. And so they've already started. Yesterday, I think I got like five applications for people that was laid off in November. And so, of course, I'm going to push them to the front because you've already been in the organization, and they were people that weren't you just got the job. They have been here like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So, of course, we want you back because of that loyalty component, that trust component. You trusted us, and we're going to trust that if we bring you back in this new role, you're going to perform because you were doing it before.
That's awesome. And how does that set with you thinking about the two different environments that you worked in, like with your mental health or your physical health or how you felt about going to work?
I would tell you in my previous role, and I had to drive like 45 minutes to work, I needed that drive.
Mm,
That
I
was my time to say, you can do it, you got it, it's just another day. You got bills to pay, like buck up, come on, cupcake, let's get it.
bet.
Um, in this role, the only time I have those kinds of days is if it's jam packed, like interview every, hour on the hour, because being on all the time is a thing. It's exhausting.
It's
Otherwise than
exhausting.
that, I don't have those days in this current role.
I love that. No, yeah, that's exactly like being a teacher. When I used to teach high school, especially when it was just like class after class after class, like you're
Mhm,
on all the time and it is exhausting. So yeah, to have
mhm.
that kind of time to decompress by the time either on the way to work or the way home, because I
Yeah,
had small children to come home to, it's like I wanted to be the best version of me as I could. So I
correct.
had to like leave all of that at work. And I loved my job, but it was exhausting, and
Yep.
working with, high school students, the ones on the call, you guys were high school students not too long ago. I'm sure you guys can remember what it was like in high school. Some of the students weren't always the best versions of themselves.
That was so well put. Yes, they're not the best versions of themselves.
Not all the time. I love that. Okay, so let's talk about just like how students that are on the call, how can they develop this, like this sense of integrity, this sense of ownership of their role? What kind of advice would you give them as they are starting to embark on looking for internships, looking for post-graduation full-time employment? What kind of things should they be working on to kind of embody this idea?
So I'll talk to you about an intern that I feel dropped the ball.
Okay.
I met her at a college here in, Tampa, and she said, "Hey, do you guys do internships?" So I said, "Sure. What are you looking for?" And she says, "Oh, I need one." And she was an MSW, Masters of Social Work. Okay, cool. We do those because we work in therapy, counselor. Perfect. So I said,
Excellent.
"Send me your resume." She gave me the resume. I'd rather you email it so that way I can forward it to, whoever I need to forward it to. So that was the first thing. You didn't listen. Fine. Okay. So she emails it to me. I create a new email thread with her and the program director, who is C-level. Okay. Now, when you're communicating with anyone in any organization, all communication must be professional, period. Point blank,
Mhm.
period. And so she wasn't as professional as she needed to be. So finally, I just said, "Here's the list of questions I need you to answer so we know where to plug you into, which program." And her answer, I think I sent her 8 questions, and she just said yes
Oh,
to which
yeah.
question.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
So I messaged her again and I said, "I need you to itemize your answer so I know what you can or can't do." And so, long story short, she didn't even know what her program required from the internship. So, some
Oh.
interns will say she has to work an 8 hour day at least 3 days a week, or she has to get through these metrics in this internship, or she has to be supervised by this person with this level of education. She didn't know any of those things. And so finally I said, "Well, who does know this information?" And that's when she plugged me into her advisor, the advisor. And now all of us are on this thread. It's about 5 of us. Okay. Advisor is on it. She's on point. And then everything just went cold. So then the advisor sends me an email and says, "Hey," she sends it to myself and everyone else. "Hey, what's going on with this candidate? We haven't heard anything." And the student is CC'd on the email as well. So the program director says, "Well, the student never got us the information we needed, so we were waiting on her." So the advisor is like, "No problem, I have it here." And she sends it. So then the student decides to send it after the advisor sends it. So I got off grid with the advisor and asked her, "Hey, what's going on here?" And she says, "Well, I just had a meeting with her and she told me she hadn't heard from you guys. And that was why the tone of my email was the way it was, that accountability.
Hmm.
In turn, I would rather you have said, I dropped the ball
Yeah.
I didn't send the information you guys needed. And that's why, because you can't walk into anywhere knowing that you work at social services and not expect to get a background check, fingerprint, and drug screen. We can't bring you in there. And so we're not going to move until we get those steps taken. And so once the advisor realized it wasn't on us, it was on the intern, that for me was a turnoff. I would have just ended the relationship and said, no, thank you. Because if you can't come in being accountable for where you dropped the ball, whether it was a mistake or whatever, then where else are you not going to be accountable?
Yes. That's huge. Let's say that again louder for the ones in the back. You have got to be accountable for the good things that you do, but also the things where you're going to make mistakes. I mean, that's where we're all human. Just even yesterday, I had a student come to me and said, he's like, I got a zero on assignment. It was in another class. Got a zero on assignment. He's like, I may or may not have used ChatGPT. And I was like, well, did you? And he's like, I did. And I said, okay, well, you did it. And he's like, you know what? I absolutely did. He went and talked to that professor, owned up to it immediately, did not make excuses whatsoever, said, you know what? I screwed up. This is what I did. I'm being accountable for my lack of professionalism, like my what I did. And the professor was like, you know what? Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm,
And instead of getting a zero, you can absolutely redo the assignment. And here's even better. The professor said, you can redo the same assignment,
mm-hmm.
but just do, and he's like, nope, I need to do a whole new assignment. He was
I
like, I
love
don't feel
that.
like that's fair because all I would be doing is just like rewording it from where I kind of stole it from. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, I'm going to redo an
I
entire new
like that.
assignment. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, yes,
Yep.
because that's that accountability. And now, yes, he made a mistake, but the fact that he owned it, didn't blame anybody, didn't make
Yes.
excuses, didn't try to do the easy way out, it's like the respect went through the roof I
Yes.
mean, even it wasn't even my student, it
Mm-hmm.
was just somebody that I happened to know here on campus. But for that professor, for that student, and for me, it was like, wow, that's how you handle a mistake.
That is what we're looking for in the work environment. When you're in a leadership role, you are busy. I'll say that again. You are busy. Between the meetings for the meeting, to talk about the meeting in the meeting for that meeting, I don't have time to micromanage any of my employees. So when Megan says, hey, I finished it and this is what my results are, I should be able to take her at her word. Am I going to
Mhm.
spot check? Yes. Do I have to spot check every single time? I shouldn't, because Megan is supposed to be leading with ethics and integrity. So I can trust that she gave me what I asked her for. And when employers can't trust you or take you at your word, you're not our favorite employee. You're not the one we're looking to promote. You're not the one we're looking to pour into with, other progress that can lead to leadership. Because if I can't trust you with this, how am I going to trust you with that?
I love that. That was eloquently said too. It's not, you don't just get the job and go, okay, I've done my part. Now I can just sit back and, just exist. Those that don't step up, those that are not accountable, those that we cannot trust, like you're saying, like, because if you don't have time for that, you don't have time to check my work. Because you have your own work and then, you're supervising so many other people. If you have to go and check everybody else's work, that's all you would be doing.
Correct.
And those are the people that are not going to get promoted. Those are the
Correct.
people that, or if you were to lead, because we tell this to our students all the time too, everybody knows everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because what you say and do does follow you. And, like if you're supervising somebody and then they move on to another position, somebody calls to do a check on them or they want to use you as a reference, how can I put my name behind you if I can't trust you?
Your reputation will precede you
Absolutely.
everywhere you go, especially if you have a name like Deborah. there's only so many. So your reputation, and like you said, people know people all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, and they talk, especially
Yes.
in the HR world. We talk because if I'm going to bring someone into this role, hey, have you worked with this person? I'm looking on your LinkedIn to see if we have connections. Oh, do you really know this person, or is it someone that you just connected with? I get that email from people. I get, hey, I saw that messaged this person. Da da da. What did you get from that? We talk. So
Yes.
professionalism is absolutely mandatory. And another thing that I want to impart on you guys, ownership of your role is important because everyone is looking at you. everyone is looking to see who's going to be the next in the pipeline for that promotion. And so if I can trust you to own your mistake, then I know when you don't know something, you're going to say that too. Hey, I'm
Hmm.
not sure. Let me get back to you. The worst thing you can do is give someone smoke and mirrors to make it seem like you know everything. And then it comes back and they're just like, well, Deborah said da 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 da, but that really wasn't what it was. Now I got
Right.
to try and roll it back and be like, oh, well, I was thinking that's what it was. Just say, I'm not sure. Let me verify. I'll double check. Let me figure that out and I'll get back to you. That's
Yes.
significantly better than giving me smoke and mirrors and rainbow and sprinkles.
Yeah, no, cannot stress that enough about just owning it. I mean, even I did it last week. I was coordinating a campus to career tour, and I wasn't the one going on the trip, so I just at that point kind of it went out of my brain, but I
Mhm,
didn't reserve shuttles like I was supposed to. And so the morning of, the two people on my team that were getting ready to go take 20 something students on this trip had no shuttles. And this was all on
mhm,
me. And my boss was calling me. She's like, "Hey, can you forward me the request where you reserved the shuttles?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And after I went through everything and realized that I didn't do it, first
mhm.
thing I said was, "I dropped the ball and I am so sorry."
Yep.
And, and then she's like, "You know what? It's okay." I mean, they were able to get it worked out, but
Mhm,
had I had said, like, "Oh, that's not my job," or "I wasn't supposed to do that," "You're the one going on the trip. You should have." No, I was just like, "You're right." And she was like, "Thank you so much," because then that was a 30-second conversation versus
yeah.
if I had tried to blame and backpedal and,
Yeah.
point fingers elsewhere, that could have been, drawn out to something even more uncomfortable. Whereas I
Yeah.
was uncomfortable for all of 30 seconds to say, "I screwed up.
Mhm,
This is my fault and it will not happen again." And she's like, "I know it
mhm.
won't. It's cool. You've never
Yeah.
done it before. I don't think you'll do it again." And I was like, "Absolutely not," because I felt this big for
Mhm.
potentially screwing up that event for 20 plus students. So yeah, like it's not even just entry level, students. It's when you're up in leadership as well. Like you have to be able to own that and then you'll gain the respect. If you don't know something, like Deborah was just saying, say, "I don't know. That's a great question. Let me find out for you." I love
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're kind of coming up on our time already. Time goes by so fast when we do these.
It
I also
does.
love these. Okay, so let's just see. Was there anything else that you would like to share with them? I mean, I love the idea of taking the ownership of, owning up to things, when you do well and even when you kind of mess up. But what about this entrepreneur part of our talk? How does that kind of fit into this ownership part?
So, as an entrepreneur, you're always looking for help, whether it's with marketing, with staff, with product design, or shipping. You're always looking for a partner. And so, in that space, you have to have your vision, whether it's your business plan, whether it's your ideas written down on notebooks, something has to be written so that you know what steps you need to take. When you're talking entrepreneurship, you have to worry about your own personal credit in order to establish your business credit. There's no way you can get business credit without with your personal being horrible. Because if you don't take care of your own finances, that's them going to believe we can't loan you thousands of dollars for a business if your own personal finances are not what they need to be. And that does include your tax returns. Don't lie on those either.
Oh, that's
Um,
that's huge.
yes, it is. And so when you start looking for partnerships, you want to look for people that are ethical, full of integrity, because you're trusting them to build your website and not put any kind of Trojan horse in there to steal credit card numbers when your orders come in. You're looking for them to create flyers that are going to be appealing and work versus just kind of throwing something on a page and telling you it's going to work. You're looking for people that are going to get the product to you. If they say that you're going to have it by January 1, you don't want them calling you January 1 saying, what happened was we had a delay in production. Well, why didn't you call me last week or when you realized this was going to be an issue? So, entrepreneurship is about planning, planning, accountability, more planning, detail, and planning. Even when you have a plan, you've got to have that backup for that plan because you're talking about people that have lives and life happens every day. And so, entrepreneurship, you absolutely have to be resilient mentally and emotionally because it is a roller coaster. Your biggest sales will probably be not the friends and family that you've done things for. Most of the time, it's strangers. I have strangers that I've met that were more loyal to me to where those strangers became friends. And I ended up inviting them to my wedding versus the people
Wow.
that and I've known these people for years and we had never met in person. But because we did business with each other, those friendships happened. I had like 5 couples travel from Philadelphia, New York, and 3
Wow.
from Michigan. Who would have thought?
I
So you
love
never
that.
know who's going to be the one to really have your back. So don't expect, a local friend that's here or family to be that person. It just may be the person on the other side of a computer or a laptop.
That's great. I love that. I can see how somebody would want to travel for you. You have a wonderful vibe, you know. I
Thank
can see
you.
that. Absolutely. Well, we are coming up on our time, so I wanted to thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights on this. Students on the call, you can either scan the QR code that's on the screen, or I did put the link in the chat pod that you can click on and mark your attendance for today's call. But this is actually our last call for this semester as well. So what a great way to wrap up our employability skill series for the fall 2025 semester. Thank you again, Deborah, for sharing your time. I've enjoyed having you. Students, I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Other than that, guys, have a wonderful day. Enjoy your Wednesday. Try to stay warm, okay? Bye, everyone.
Bye.